Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So we from our previous videos, we've talked about um, different logical functions. We've talked about two logical functions. We've talked about countif functions, yeah, countif logical function, and we've described how countif works and the different, and then we considered different scenario, and we also established the fact that count if cannot do the job of count ifs, while count ifs can do the job of count if. And in this context, we had a data set that was given to us by our client, and then we've done all the necessary data preprocessing, and also we've made use of our count if, and we also established that count if is only used in when we have just one scenario, when we have one criteria and one range. But if we are using count ifs, it means we have multiple criteria. It means we have multiple criteria and multiple conditions. And when we have count ifs, it means we have more than one. We have more than one criteria. So we are going to be moving on to another interesting part of another interesting logical function called sum if. It is similar to it is similar to count if, but it is not count if. It is only similar because they are all also logical functions. They are all also logical functions, and just like count if and count ifs, some if we have some if and some ifs, and just like count ifs, some if cannot do the job of some ifs, but some ifs can do the job of some if. And it is also the same thing as count if, where if we have more than one criteria, then we are going to make use of our sum ifs. But if we have just one criteria, we are using just our sum if. And if we have where some ifs can do the job of some if, while some if cannot do the job of some ifs. So, and then this is the syntax and the parenthesis for some if, or some if as it were. So we have the sum range, that is the range that you want to sum together. Just sum if is from the word sum, like addition, basically addition. So and then followed by the range one, that is the first range you want to evaluate, the criteria at which you want to use this range to evaluate, right? And then range two, which is optional, that is if you have multiple conditions, then you can go as far as your range two criteria, two, range three criteria, three, and so also so. But the difference between count if and sum if is that the sum range, we deal with sum range in sum ifs, right? We deal with sum range in sum ifs, while in count if we only deal with just range. That is the range we want to count, right? That is so. If you are using sum ifs, the sum range, your product, your end product, what you're trying to find out is going to be the first message, or the first parenthesis you need to fulfill in your formulas, right? This is going to be the first parenthesis you are going to be fulfilling in your formulas. So please, let's put that in mind, right? So without much talks, let's go to an example just from continue. So we are going to be using section 3 now, some ifs from our data set. You can find the data set, you will have been given the data set and we download it. So we have problem 3 here. So find out the total revenue for each of the products mentioned in the table below. That is, and don't forget, all of these data set here they were taken from our main data set, in our main data set here. So please don't let us forget. So we are going to be trying using sum if first. And then the condition that is going to give us making use of sum if is because we are going to check from, like I said, make sure you understand and digest the question very, very well before you proceed. Understand the question, digest it very well before you proceed. Then from there, you'll be able to find out, or you will be able to determine what column do you need to use to fulfill or to answer your question or to perform your task. So from this question, the question says find out the total revenue. So which means the first column you are going to be using is going to be your revenue. for each of the products mentioned in the table below. That is, we are going to be dealing with revenue for our sum range and then also product for our criteria range, and then all of these products for our criteria. That is, we are going to be checking for each of these products in this particular column and then displaying their corresponding revenue. Displaying their corresponding revenue. That is why I said interpreting the question is very, very important. You need to digest it, you need to understand it before you proceed into solving the problem. So as usual, I'm going to start with equals to sum if sum if. Then you see that we have sum if and sum if. So let's use sum if first because we are dealing with just a single criteria. So now what is our range now? Our range is from our data set, our revenue column in our data set. And don't forget, we named our data set, and then don't forget, we use our square bracket to bring out the column. So I'm going to revenue. Now, revenue is my sum range. That is what I want to find out. Now, what is the criteria? What is the criteria? Also, again, I'm going to call on my data set. And then inside my data set, all of these guys here, they are products, right? They are products. So I'm going to call on product, and then criteria itself. So now criteria is going to be the criteria is going to be, this is B11. Is that B11? Yeah, so B11. Then close my bracket and hit enter. Spill. Sorry. Let me see what's going on. So sorry about that short break. So I'm going to say equals to sum if. Now we see the parentheses for sum if. Now sum if is a little bit different from sum ifs, right? Because if we are dealing with one criteria, it's different from when we are dealing with multiple criteria. This is multiple conditions, multiple ranges. So now Excel is asking me that what is the range? What is my sum range? What is my range? That is my data set. So data set. Now, what am I really looking for? These are products, right? Pure soft detergent 200 ml, pure soft detergent 200 ml. So I'm going to call on product, and then now what is the criteria? What am I looking for inside product? I am looking for this particular product here, this first product. If you do one correctly, Excel will automatically do the rest for you. So I'm going to say B11. I can say B11 and then I can also select. I can just use my mouse to select on this. So it is still the same thing too. Now, Excel is asking me that what is my sum range? Remember what we are looking for, total revenue. In most cases, when we are using sum range, that is when we are using a sum range, sum if logical functions, it means the column we are going to be having as our end product, right? That we are going to be summing is going to be a column that is formatted as values, right? So I'm going to say data set, then inside data set revenue, select, close my bracket, and then close my bracket again, and then hit enter. And then you can see that Pure Soft 100 ml was sold for the total revenue for Pure Soft 100 ml is 3,024, for 200 ml 4,971, and then and so on and so forth like that. Right. So this is how to use our sum ifs. So let's go to the next one. The next one says, fine, just like it is similar to, if you can understand the concept of count if, this should not be a problem for you. So our advice, you calm down, you take your time and study this and understand every one of it. So, and then you can also put down your questions. I'll be glad to attend to it anytime we are having our live classes. So find out the total revenue where the quantity of products sold is less than 100. That is, we should find out the total revenue. And then we are going to say equals to sum if. Remember, we are still using sum if. So what is our range? Our range is what? Our range is quantity. Our range is quantity. So we are going to say data set. Data set. So inside data set, we are going to be calling on quantity. We're going to be calling on quantity. Then you close my square bracket. Sorry, close my square bracket. Now, what is my criteria? My criteria is just like what I have here. My criteria is less than 100. And then don't forget you open your quotation mark and then you say less than 100 and then you close your quotation. That is our criteria. Now, what is our sum range? Our sum range is our revenue as usual. So I'm going to say data set. Inside our data set revenue, then I'm going to close my bracket. Then we can see that it is 16,820. Now, understanding this particular question is very, very important. That is, now they are trying to ask us like to find out all the products, right? All the products that the total quantity that we sold for them are less than 100. Find out all the revenue for these products, right? Products that each of their sale is less than 100 in terms of quantity. Then we should find out the total revenue that was generated for all of these products. Please, let's put that in mind. So, problem 3B. Problem 3B. So say find out the total revenue of the month of August. Now, this is also simple, right? This is also simple. Now, let's go back to our data set first, and then let's count. You remember we need to count. We don't even need to count cell, but you can go back to your data set and study everything, but specifically or most importantly, the month sold column. Now, we created our own month, right? We created our own month that is written in words, right? We all know that the 8th month of the year is August. So the month column that we created is August, while the month sold column that we have in the data set is the month numbers. Right. So we are going to try the two. Anyone that works, then we are good. So we say so we say sorry about the network break. So um so right. So we say equals to sum ifs equals to sum ifs sum ifs sum if. Now our range is still our data set. Inside our data set is now we have two types of months, right? We have two types of months. We have month sold and then the months that we calculated. So let's start with the month sold column that was given to us in the data set. Now the criteria is 8. That is the 8th month of the calendar. Then our sum range is going to be data set, and then as we've done previously, revenue. And then you see that it's the 326.98. Now let's use the month we calculated. Same process. So it's going to be equals to sum if, and then the range as usual is data set. Now inside our data set, we are going to be let's use our own month that we created. Now the other one, when we use the month sold column, we use the August, that is the 8th value, the value number 8, right? So this time around, let's see if we can be able to use the month column that we calculated by ourselves. So we're going to say into August. So that is, we are going to tell Excel that to sum everything that was made in the month of August. Then for our sum range is data sets and then revenue, then we hit enter. And then you can see that it works, right? It works. So you can make use of either your months in terms of your that was formatted in text, or the months that was formatted in values. So very quickly, let's deal with this particular question also. Find out the total revenue of products for which the total revenue is greater than $2,000, just like we did in our account if less than $2,000 equals to $2,000 and does not equal $2,000. Same way, we are going to do it. So we are going to say equals to sum if the range as usual is data set, and then we can use anything here. But we can say revenue, because we are going to be repeating the revenue twice, the total revenue, and then these are also revenues. So again, what is the criteria? The first criteria is greater than 2,000, and then what is our sum range? Our sum range is still revenue, that is, we want to see the revenues for products that are greater than 2,000, and then see that for some products that are that their revenue is greater than 2,000, we have a total of 17,603 of them. And then let's do less than. I can easily copy and then paste it here, but let me just take the long road so that we can understand the concept of it. So again, I'm going to say sum if, and then my data set. Inside my data set, I'll be dealing with the revenue. Then my criteria this time around is going to be open quotation less than 2,000, and for my sum range as usual, data sets and then revenue, then I'll close my brackets, I'll hit enter. You see, the ones that are less than 2,000 are 64,940, and then the next one is the ones that are precisely or exactly 2,000. So sum if data set. Inside data set, I'll be looking at revenue in, close the revenue, and then the criteria is still open quotation equals to 2,000, close quotation, and then for my sum range is my data set, still revenue, and then close my bracket, hit enter. So no, there is no product that is exactly 2,000 in terms of their revenue. And then lastly, we say sum if, then the sum range is data set. Inside data set, revenue, and then the criteria this time around is not equals to, so it's going to be greater than or less than 2,000, and then the sum range is data set revenue. So then I'll close my bracket and then I'll hit enter. You can see that it's 82,553. So this is how to use our sum if. This, if we are dealing with a single condition, we can use our sum if. Are dealing with a single condition, we can use our sum if. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Just like in our last video, we talked about sum if and how we use sum if to sum if logical functions to solve some problems where we have single conditions, right? And then we are able to like use our greater than and our less than to find SUMIF, and also we were able to find out some total revenues for some product. So now in this video, we are going to be moving on to SUMIF. And I said during our first video with SUMIF, we established the fact that SUMIF cannot do the job of SUMIFs, but SUMIFs can definitely do the job of SUMIFs. So that is what we are going to be trying to like check out here. So we just continue from where we stop, and we are going to be starting with problem 4A, which says calculate the total revenue for the following sales channel where the number of units sold is greater than 100. And specifically, like I have been saying in in this course, that as an analyst, it is very important for you to understand your client's request and understand how to approach it before you even begin at all. As a matter of fact, it is advisable you have a note and paper, like, put out an outline on how you want to go about solving your client's request or a task that's been given to you. So very quickly, let's like go over this particular question again. The question says calculate the total revenue, which means you are going to be needing the revenue column for the following sales channel. That is, we are also going to be needing the sales channel column from our data set. And also, where the number of units sold, we know the only column that can contain the number of units sold is the quantity is greater than 100. That is, we are going to be making use of 3 different columns, and that is where SUMIFs comes in. So without wasting much time, I will say equals to SUMIFs, and then our sum range now. That is what we want to see as our end product, and what we want to see is our revenue. So call on my data set, and then open a square bracket, and then call on my revenue column. And criteria range now. The criteria range is for the sales channel. Right? That is the criteria range one, I mean. So again, I'll call on my data set. Inside my data set, I'm going to be looking into sales channel. And then what is the criteria that we want to measure in sales channel? We want to measure online, direct, and retail, right? And so I'm going to be starting with online first, which is on cell B9. So I can as well select from here, but I just want to use the column name, right? I want to use the column name. So B2, now criteria range 2, again my data set. And then inside my data set, where the number of units sold is greater than 100. Like I said, we are going to be using quantity. So quantity, and then the criteria you want to measure in quantity is greater than 100, and then you are going to start with your quotation column, quotation mark, then greater than 100, and close my quotation, close my bracket, and then I will hit enter. And then you can see that my sales channel, the number of units sold that is greater than 100, all the total sales that were made online that are greater than 100 units are 27,479, right? 27,479. And then for the direct, we have 9,246.59. And the beautiful thing about Excel is the automation. Like I said, you do one, Excel does the rest for you automatically, right? So I haven't gotten that, so let's move on to the second question. Second question said that calculate the total revenue by sales channel for all products, right? That we need to calculate the total revenue by sales channel for all of these products. Calculate the total revenue, number 1. That means we are going to be using the revenue column. By sales channel, we are going to be using sales channel. And then for all products, we are going to be using the product name. That is because we have all these product names here, right? So again, we are going to say equals to SUMIFs. What is our sum range revenue? Data set. Inside data set, we are going to be looking into revenue. And then our first criteria range, right, is going to be sales channel online. right? Sales channel online. So I'm going to say data set. Inside data set, we are going to be looking into sales channel. And then the first criteria is online. The first criteria is online. So I can either select on this header here, which is column C19, right? Column C19, or I can just type online. We have been selecting the cell name ever since. But what happens if I just type online to my criteria? Now criteria range 2. Now we are going to be dealing with the products, still data set. Inside my data set, I'm going to be looking into the product. And then my criteria 2 is this first product here. Pure soft detergent 100 ml, which is cell B20. B20. And then I'll close my bracket and I'll hit enter. And then you can see that the first pure soft detergent 100 ml was sold online. Total revenue that was generated for pure soft detergent 100 ml online through the online sales channel is 1,749, and so on and so forth like that. And then the same thing too, we can as well copy this formula and copy this formula like this, and then paste it here using our paste special, say Control or Alternate V. And then we use our paste specials to paste formula, and then we'll click on OK. And then we need to go and adjust the cell name because the sales channel has changed. So this one is direct. One is direct. So I'm going to type direct. Then I think copying is not working. Direct. So instead, let's just do it straight away, so as not to cause confusion. So I'm going to say equals to SUMIF. The sum range is data set. Inside data set, we are going to be looking inside revenue. And then for the sum criteria for the criteria range now, still our data set. Inside our data set, we are going to be making use of the sales channel. So inside our sales channel, we are going to be looking for direct. Now, this place I typed online, this one, well, let's see if we select the cell name, if it is going to work. This is cell D19 for the header. For the header is cell D19 direct. So let's say cell D19. We just want to make an attempt and see if it works. And then for the criteria 2 now, we are going to be dealing with products. So data sets, side data sets, product, and then the first product is B20, product B20. And then I'll close my bracket, I'll hit enter. It still didn't work. So I think what we are going to do is to, let me see if I type direct. So which means, let's go and confirm this. If there is any pure soft detergent 100 ml that was sold direct using the direct sales channel, for confirmation's sake, it might be true. So yeah, pure soft detergent, come to your data set for pure soft detergent 200 ml, and then the sales channel direct. As a matter of fact, I can't even see direct. See, there's no direct there, which means our first two here that is giving us error is actually correct. And then let's see pure soft detergent 250 ml. Let's see how much was generated from that. So pure soft detergent 250 ml. 250 ml for the direct sales channel. Then we can see the total revenue here. Total revenue is what? What do we have here? I think we have 1,849. And if you make the summation of these three together, it's going to give us 1,849. So that is how to make use of our cell. make use of our sum ifs. Sum ifs. So very quickly, let's go back to the next question. Let's go back to the next question. I think we still need to do for retail also. So you are going to do this the same way, equals to sum ifs. The sum range is still data set. Inside data set, we are going to be looking for revenue. And then our criteria range, as usual, is our sales channel. So this data set, sales channel. And then we are going to be looking for, this time around, we are going to be looking for the retail sales channel. Retail. And then our last criteria is data set. Inside data set, we are going to be looking into product. And then inside our product, we're going to be looking for B20 as usual. Then we have 1,275 times in that pure soap detergent, 1,275 revenue for pure soap detergent, 100 ml sold in the online, in the retail sales channel, So, but like I said, interpreting the question is very, very important. And as a matter of fact, there's something I always say that there is no one way to achieve a task. There is no one method. Choose the method that is easiest for you and that is also accurate for you. You don't need to complicate matters. I've seen, over time, I've seen a lot of aspiring data or upcoming data analysts, right? That wants to try the complicated stuff. I can assure you that our everyday life, all the tasks we take care of in our everyday life are what we use the simplest codes, the simplest functions to solve, not the overly complicated stuff. Because the more complicated it is, the more it is meant, it gets to mess up your work and your task. So keep it simple. Sometimes, yes, I understand that you know the complicated stuff, you know the advanced stuff, right? But sometimes the most difficult task demands the simplest of all functions. All you need to do is just to comprehend the question, know how to interpret it, and then proceed to use the method that best works for you, right? So let's go to the last part of this, our sum is. So calculate the total revenue for the following products and country pairs. Calculate the total revenue, that is, we are going to be needing our revenue column, the product column, and also the country column. So without wasting much time, we say equals to sum ifs. Our sum range, as usual, we are looking for the revenue, and then the criteria range is we are going to be starting with. It doesn't matter how we arrange this. We can start with country first, regardless of how the question is being asked, right? So we can see that product came before country, but we can arrange it anyhow we like, in as much as we have fulfilled our sum range. That is what we want to see as our end product. So instead of doing it in the conventional way now, I'm going to try putting country before product. So I'm going to say data set. Inside data set, I'm looking for country. And then the first country is here. This is the cell C39. Cell C39. Cell C39. And then the criteria range to data set as well. Inside data set now, I'm looking for products. So product. And then the first product I'm going to be looking for is pure soap detergent, which is on cell B39. So I'm going to say B39, 39. Then I'll close my bracket and then I'll hit enter. Then you can see. Which means we have one here that is missing, which means let's check if there was a sale of super soft 500 ml in India, just for confirmation. So let's go back to our data set. Let's go to country. Let's go to country. So country, India. Let's find India. Okay, this is India. Then we'll click on OK. And then you can see that only one product was sold in India, and it is not what? It is not super soft 500 ml. It is actually data fast stain remover 200 ml. So for confirmation purpose, we can always filter our data just for us to confirm if whatever it is we are doing is correct. So this is how to make use of our SUMIFs to like achieve our task. This is another logical function on its own, and Excel doesn't get more advanced than this. Sometimes what makes Excel looks as if it is simple is the person that is using Excel that is making it simple. Not that Excel is simple, and it's not difficult at the same time. It depends on your approach to it. It depends on our individual approach to it. So thank you very much. I'm going to see us in the next video. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So very quickly, we are going to be moving on to the next function on our logical function lessons. And this time around, we are going to be dealing with the if logical function. The if logical function. If logical function is a straightforward logical function, and it does have three items in its parentheses. The logical test, that is what you are trying to test for, and then the value, if true, the value you want Excel to display for you if the test is true, if Excel finds the test to be true, and then the value you want Excel to display for you if the test is not true, that is, if it is false, right? So the logical test, a value or logical expression that can be like evaluated as true or false. The value if true is the value, it is sometimes optional, right? And then the if function can be nested with every other function, right? It can be nested with every other function. So let's go and see how it works. So we have problem 5a here. So the first problem says identify if each of the product sales listed below has met or exceeded the target revenue. Now, you can see that I prepared a column, a cell here as 450. This 450 is the target revenue. Normally, I know it in my mind that it is 450 according to my client's request, but for me to be able to make cell reference, for me to be able to make a reference to this particular cell, that is why I created this single cell here, right? And you see that it is standing alone, nothing by the side, by the left, by the right, or up and down. So it is a standalone cell, which means whatever it is I do, if we reference it, that means we have to reference it absolutely. Don't forget from our lessons from cell referencing or cell logging. So we have to reference it absolutely. So this is the target revenue that was given to us, right? This is the target revenue that was given to us. So we need to use this target revenue to check all this revenue, right? If any one of this revenue meets this target, any one of this region with this product meets this particular target revenue of 450, then we should give Excel a message. Like you can decide to put anything there. You can put below target, meets targets, below target or meets target, right? So very quickly, let's dive into it. So I'm going to say equals to if, and then like I said, we have three parentheses there that we need to fill in. The logical test, what do we want to perform, right? What do we want to perform? We want to use every one of these cells, every item on this column here, we want to use it to test this guy. We want to use it to test our target revenue. It is not compulsory you make reference to this target revenue of 450, right? No, you can just type 450 and then go, right? And then the question said met or exceeded. Met or exceeded, that is, if it's exact, then it is true. If it is 450, that person has escaped. If it is 451, that means it has exceeded. But if it is 449, it is below target, right? So which means we are going to be making use of the equals to and the greater than and equals to sign, right? So say equals to if, then the logical test is going to be data set. Inside data set, now don't forget we are going to be needing revenue here, target revenue. Revenue is the only thing that we are going to be needing because we are using just if logical function, and it has three items on the parentheses. So we are going to say inside the data set now, revenue, close my bracket, and then the value. Oh, sorry, we are not done. We are not done. Now, the logical test we want to test is that if our revenue, right? As a matter of fact, we don't even need to make reference to our data set itself. We can just consider all these items here. So what I'm going to say is that if revenue here, this particular revenue here is greater than or equals to this target revenue here, and then I'll reference this absolutely, don't forget, reference it absolutely with your F4, right? So now the value, if it is true, what do you want me to, the example is asking, what do you want me to display if this test is true, right? If this test is true, so me, I will just say, I'll just type net target. Don't forget your quotation mark if you are typing anything that has to do with text. Net target. Now, example is asking me, okay, what if it is not true? What if it is not true, right? So I'm going to say below target. Let me put below target. So below target. And then I'll close my bracket and I'll hit enter. Then let me even let me bold my end results. Let me bold in so that it can come out normally. Yeah. So you can see what we have here now. Our 450 met target and it's met target, right? Because our target revenue we used in testing it is 450. 975 met target and even exceeded it. The question, understand the question very well, or one of the two will do, or met or exceeded. So I can as well put exceed target to my value if true, right? But I think the English is not really going to make sense. That is why I have to just put met target, right? Because I can't specify something different for the ones that even exceeded. But in as much as they are more than 450, they still made targets for me, and I'm good with it, right? So this is how to use the if logical function to test for any hypothesis, anything you want to test for, right? So let's go to problem 5b. Problem 5b says, please return the quantity sold for each region that meets targets, that meets or exceeds the target revenue from above. That is, we are still using our 450, but this particular question is a little bit dynamic. We are going to be using, we have two things that we need to test for, right? As a matter of fact, we have our value if true already. Because if you read the question very well, the question said, please return the quantity sold. That is, your value if true is quantity sold. Show me the quantity sold for each of this region that meets or exceeds the target revenue, which is 450 up there. Normally, this data set is a small data set. We can see right now, you can see from mere looking at it, we know the ones that met, the one we are going to be seeing their quantity. That is, we have to return all this quantity. We have to show them as their value if false, if true. And then we can put anything to our value if false. So I'll say equals to if. Now my logical test, as usual, my revenue here, if it is greater than, as usual, or equals to 450. So instead of me to make reference to that 450 up here, let me just type 450. You can see that this is a text. Now this is a value. That is why I am not putting it in the quotation. Now, what is my value if true? They said, my client said I should return the quantity. So the quantity is going to be my value if true. Now, my value if false. So let me put below target. Then you can see the ones that meet and exceeded the target and the one that are below the target. right? So this is how to use the if logical function. Just pretty straightforward. You don't have to make it complicated or anything like that. No, no. Just use what is easy for you, what you find easy. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. We are going to continue with our logical function, and another part of logical function is if and. If and. Now, when we did that during our the if function itself, I said that if function can be nested with some other functions, right? It can be nested with some other functions. So the first function we are going to be nesting our if with, that is, and whenever you hear nesting, it means we are using it in conjunction with each other, right? We are using it together. So this time around, we are joining and with if, and it's going to give us if and, right? So the parenthesis is just is a simple one, right? And as its own, and is used to, and is what is used with if to like test for multiple, to carry out multiple tests. You'll notice that if did not give us if didn't give us option to carry out multiple logical tests, but if and gives us that option. It's going to help us expand if we have more than one logical test we want to perform. Though there is a new form, if you are using an updated version of Excel, if you are using Excel 2024, there's a new function now that has that can now do the job of if and. We are still going to get there. We call it ifs. That is IFS, just like some if, count ifs. We also have ifs now. But let's say peradventure you are using a lower version of Excel. So you can make use of if and to do the job of it, but I will always advise that you always get your tools up to date. You always get your tools up to date. You can contact the admin of Terra Skills for that. So let's quickly go to what if and does. Now, the if plus and, that is, there are two statements together. They facilitate the use of multiple logical tests in evaluating a data set where all tests must be true. Each statement within the AND function must be structured as a unique test. You can't simply list the values being compared, right? So similar to the if statement, the AND statement can also be embedded within multiple functions to run more advanced tests, right? To run more advanced tests. And then here we have an example, right? So let's say we have a column named color with different colors. We have the red, green, red, blue, red, and blue, which means we have about just three colors. And then the sizes, we have a size color with small, large, medium, right? And then we are asked to use if and, right? We want to carry out a multiple if function or a multiple logical test to check for a red ball that is small. Anyone that matches a red ball that is small. Now, there is one thing about if and. If and is absolute. If and is absolute. If you are carrying out multiple tests in if and, using if and, you need to be sure that all the tests, if and will tell you, if and will make sure that all the tests you are trying to do is absolutely true. If one of it is found to be false, if and will not work. If and is absolute. If and is absolute, right? If and is absolute. Everything that you are trying to test has to be true. None of it has to be false. None of your tests has to be false. If not, if and is not going to if and is not going to give you your value if true, right? It's not going to work. If and is absolute. We are still going to be moving to if or, which is much more expandable than if and. So let's go to our data set, our workbook, and then try this. So our if and section number 6. Now, let's look at this. Identify problem 6A. Identify if the product sales below have met both the target price and target revenue goals. In if, because if is just if only allows us for a single logical test, right? That is why we only tested for a target revenue. But this time around, we are nesting it with and, right? We are nesting it with and. That is two conditions or two or more conditions. That is why we now have target revenue and then unit price. So the client said, I want you to help me identify out of this data set that I have listed below, right? So I want you to help me find the product sales that has met both the revenue and then the unit price. That is, every one of these products that was sold or that has been sold for nothing less than $4 for the unit price, and not all, all will say, okay, if this one does not work, this one has to work. But and does not work like that. And has to make sure this two is absolute, right? This two is absolute. So if any one of these products is sold for at least nothing less than $4 for the unit price, and then a total of 605 revenue has been made from it, right? A total of 605 revenue has been made for it. Like, let's say in a class now, in a class where a pass mark for two courses, a pass mark is for the first course is like 50, the second course is 55. Now, for you to be able to graduate to the next class, it has been mandated that for the first course you have to score 50. 49 is not allowed. And for the second course, you have to score at least 55. 54 is not allowed. If both conditions is not met, you are not going to be promoted. That is the same scenario here. That is the same scenario here. So very quickly, let's go and see what we are saying. So I'm going to say if, equals to if. Now, instead of me to enter my logical test, then I'm going to call on and now the first logical test is we are going to be using unit price to test unit price, revenue to test revenue, unit price to test unit price, revenue to test revenue. Me looking at all this small data set, we can see it normally, but how do we automate it? How do we give Excel a command to show us something without doing it with our hands or manually, right? So my first logical test is my unit price. If my unit price, we want to check if this unit price here, everything in this unit price column meets this guy. So if unit price is greater than or equals to this my cell here, I can type 4, and I can as well make reference to this particular column here. So let me make reference to the column, which is column C8, and then I will reference it absolutely, because there is nothing downward, there is nothing sideways to and upward to. So I have to reference it absolutely so that Excel is not going to move it. Comma. That is my first logical test. Now, what is going to be my second logical test? My second logical test is going to be revenue. If my revenue is also greater than or equals to this my target revenue here, referenced absolutely to. Comma. Now, no, I am done. We are done with our logical test. Those are the two things we need to test for. So I'm going to close my first bracket. I have closed the bracket for and. So, sorry for that break. That is empty. So let's go back to, okay, so now the number, now I am done with my value if, I am done with my logical test, and then I have closed my bracket. Now, the moment I press my comma, Excel moves me back to my original function, which is if, and then now I need to specify the value if true. I can put anything there. The question said, identify if the product sales below have met both the target price and the revenue goals, right? So my value if true is going to be met target met target, and then my value if false is, let me say, does not meet, or let me just say below target, below target. Then I'll close my bracket and then I'll hit enter. Then you can see. You can see that, or let me say, this first one here, right? It meets both the unit price and then the revenue price, but we have below target here, which is not supposed to be so, right? So I think what Excel is trying to do is that Excel is trying to test for the first one first, revenue before, unit price before revenue, which is actually supposed to be so. So I think understanding the question is what is going to, understanding the English here is what is going to like help us, is what is going to help us. Because if you look at the unit price here, yes, it makes the unit price 4.50, but does it meet the revenue? No, it's less. That is why it is below target. The second one, does it meet the unit price? Yes, in fact, exceeds. Does it meet the revenue? It also exceeds. We have met target. So let me bold this one. Let's check the third one. Does it meet the unit price? Oh, yes, exceeded. Does it meet the revenue? No, below target. And then and so on. And then look at the last one. It is the exact revenue and then exceeded the unit price. So this is how to use if and. If and has to be absolute. It has to be absolute for it to return your your value if true for you. So let's move on to problem 6b. Identify the region name. Identify the region name for those products that have exceeded the target unit price and target quantity. Target unit price and target quantity. So now the target unit price that was given to us, is 10. Quantity is 50, just like what we did up there. But this time around, instead of us specifying our target, what do we call it now? Our value if true and value if false. Our value if true, right? Our value if true is going to be all this region. Our value if true is going to be region, just like what we did with quantity in our if function. So very quickly, please understand the question. Understanding the question is very, very important. Understanding it and interpreting it is very, very important. So I'm going to say equals to if, then and. My first logical test, as usual, is I am going to be using unit price to test unit price. So unit price, to even make it shorter, let me just use the cell name, unit price, which is cell E28. E28. If cell E28 is greater than or equals to, if cell E28 is greater than or equals to what? Cell C23, referenced absolutely. That is my first logical test there. Remember, I am not selecting this time, I'm just using the cell name. I'm just referencing the cells, right? So my second logical test now is going to be revenue now, which is F28. So F28 is greater than or equals to my target quantity now, referenced absolutely. I'm done with my logical test, so I'm going to close my bracket, comma. Now I'm moving to the value if true. Now the question said identify the region names, that is return the region names. So my value if true is going to be the regions, right? Comma. Now my value if false, I can just put anything there. Let me put below targets. Then I'll hit my enter. Then you can see this one, the first one here, did not meet the target unit price, which is $10, but we have 4.50 here. But does it meet the quantity? Yes. It didn't meet the quantity too, that is why it is below target. Let's check the second one. The quantity is 75 and it's met it and exceeded it. And then unit price also met and exceeded. So we have South Asia, Pacific Island, and then Eastern Europe turning out to be true for us. So this is how to make use of our if and function. It's very simple and very straightforward, not complicated or anything. All you need to do is just to understand your client's request, right? Understand the approach. You can't cram this, you just have to understand it. And the only way you can understand it is constant and constant and constant practice. Like I said, there are good practices and there are best practices. You are going to be a data analyst at a very top level, you are going to need best practices. If you don't practice, it is going to leave you. There is no two ways about it. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So after having discussed and learned about if and, we can now move to if or. Now, remember we established that if and is absolute, right? Not one condition not one condition, like the two conditions, the two logical tests we are trying to, or the multiple conditions, multiple logical tests we're trying to test has to be absolute. They have to be true for me to give you, for Excel to give us a value if true. But if or now, that is nesting or with if, gives us a much more a dynamic if function, if logical function, right? If or gives us a much more dynamic if logical function. And the if or statement, it helps to facilitate the use of multiple logical tests in evaluating a data set where any test can be true. Now, if and deals with absolute. Now, the example that I gave the other time, that you let's say in a class of students that has 2 courses to pass for you to make it to the next stage, you now passed one, you are not moving, you are not going to be promoted. But if you pass the 2, you are going to be promoted. That's the function of if and. But if or can help in such a way that if one of the course, if you pass one of the course, you are still good to go. Just any one of the courses, you are free and you are good to go. You can be promoted. Just that is how if or acts now, right? Each statement within the or function must be structured as a unique test. You can't simply list the values being compared. Now let's make use of it. Let's see what if or is. Now we are trying to make a logical test, same similar to that of the if or if and. Now this time around we have the color column and then we have prices. And we are trying to check which of this color, it is either the color is red or it is green. If the color is red or green, regardless of the price, show me X. Any one of the colors, just show me one. It is either the color is red or it is green. Anywhere it is red, show me X. Anywhere it is green, show me X. But in if and, you can't use, if you say show me anywhere it is red or green, show me. No, if and will not work that way. If and will make sure that both of them has to be red and green in the 2 columns that you are trying to make use of, right? So let's go and practicalize this. Now, our problem 7a. Now, problem 7a. So identify the distributors that do not sell products through the online channel. Like I said, interpret, calm down, read the question very well, study your data set, and then before you attack your client's requests, your task. So question said, identify the distributors that do not sell products through the online channel. So normally here, if we look at it right now, right, the question states that anybody that does not sell online, I want you to show their names under your value if true. Show their names. Every other person don't show their name. So under this our analysis column, anyone we see their name means they didn't sell online. But anywhere we see online, that means that person, like they fulfilled all righteousness, like they did their due diligence, they followed the rules, the protocols, right? So now let's just go through it. Say equals to if, or now instead of me to fulfill my logical test, I'm going to call on or. Now what is my first logical test? My first logical test is the distributors that does not sell online through the online sales channel, right? So I am going to be calling on this sales channel, this first sales channel here, right? I am going to say if it is greater than or equals to sorry, network seems to be acting funny. So I'm going to say equals to if, then I'll call on my or. Now, my first logical test is that I want to use every one of these sales channels here, right? Every one of these sales channels to test for any of the products, like every of these distributors that sold their products, that does not sell their products online, or that sold their products in through every other sales channel except online, right? So I'm going to say if or, and then I'm going to select my first sales channel here, right? If this sales channel is equals to, my first condition now is retail. I just want to check retail. Sorry, retail. Comma. That's my first logical test. My second logical test is still the same. The same sales channel. So instead of using sales, selecting on the sales channel, let's just use the cell name so as to reduce it from getting too long, reducing the formula from getting too long. So I'm going to say this is cell B9. So I'm going to say B9 equals to, or B9 equals to retail. Retail. The second logical test is still if my B9 is equals to, what's the second one? I think we have direct. So direct. So we are testing for this. I'm done with my logical test. We are testing for these two because we want to check everybody that sells through every other sales channel except online, right? So that is why we are trying to use the sales channel to check. Comma. Now, what is my value if true? They said we are asked to return the distributor's names. So I am going to select on the first distributor, right? Now, for my value if false, I can decide not to put anything in my value if false. I can decide to leave it empty. And I can leave it like this and close my brackets. It's going to show me something. But at the same time as well, I can just put my quotation mark space and quotation mark again and close my bracket. Still means the same thing too. Or at the same time, I can still I can just push, I can put like dash, and then I'll close my quotation, then I'll close my bracket, and then I'll hit enter. Then you can see that John sold his product through the retail sales channel, which has moved away from protocol. Same thing about Bode and Jennifer sold their product online. That is why we didn't have their name when returned to. But you see, Egungun and Joke, they sold through the direct and the retail. That is why we have their name. This is what if or does. If or will make sure that at least if one is right, then we are good. If one is right, we are good. Let's look at another example that's to explain this further. Right? To explain this further. So Let's look at this problem 7b. Now, return the distributor's name if they sell online. I think this one is much more explicit. Return the distributor's name if they sell online or sell over 1,000 of product, $1,000 of product. That is in terms of revenue, right? Return this distributor's name if they sold their product online, but if they don't sell online, fine. But if at all their product they sold, they generated a revenue of over 1,000, then they still make the cut. Show me their names. Show me their names. That is the difference between if or and if and. One condition is good to make the cut. So I'm going to say equals to if or. Now the first logical test is going to be, we are going to be testing for we are going to be using the sales channel as we did in the previous one, right? I'm going to be using the sales channel, which is retail, the first sales channel. You want to check if the sales channel is equals to online. You can use the cell name. At the same time, you can also just select, like I selected here. I can as well say B24, but let me just use it. The reason why I used the cell name the other time is just to make this formula shorter. You can see that through selection, this thing is getting a little bit long, right? But no problem, let's just go with it. Now, the second logical test is if this first guy here does not work, right? If this first guy does not work, okay, at least the distributor should at least generate over $1,000 revenue for us. So we are going to say revenue this time around. We want to check if revenue is what? Is greater than 1,000. Now you will notice that I didn't put equals to there, right? I didn't put equals to because the question said over. That is 1,001. The person will have made the cut. So it is either this person either sells online or this person sells at least 1,001. Assuming the question said sold $1,000 and or more now, or more. Assuming the question said sell online or sell over 1,000, sell 1,000 or more in terms of revenue of products, right? Then you should return the person's name. So one of the two conditions has to be met. So I'm done with my logical test. I'll close my bracket, comma. Now my value if true is I am asked to return these distributors, which they return their name. My value if false, I can leave it empty too. I can just leave it empty. Let me just leave it empty here, and then I'll close my bracket. But it's not ideal. Let me just put dash. Let me put dash. I'll close my bracket and hit enter. Sorry, I need to put my dash in a quotation. Yeah, and then I'll hit enter. And then you can see John did not sell online, right? At the same time, John sold an exact route of 1,000. John still didn't make the cut because the question said over 1,000. If the question had said sell 1,000 or more now, let's say I reframe the question and say 1,000 or more now, then which means we can now put equals to behind this here and put equals to behind this like this, and then we try again. And you can see that John now makes the cut. You can see that John now makes the cut. That is why understanding the question is very, 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 very important. It's very, very important, please. It's very, very important. So I can leave this like this, or I can just take the question back to the way I had written it originally. But let me just leave it like this. If you follow the video thoroughly, you will know how we got here. And then you can now see that John sold through the retail channel. It is sold online, which is fine, but at least it generated at least 1,000 revenue. Bode is a good person, is a good distributor, sold online, even generated more than 1,000 revenue. Jennifer, yeah, followed the protocol and sold online, but has lesser revenue, but still made the cut. Egungun didn't follow the protocol also, sold directly, but at least made 1,152 for us. But if you look at Joke did not follow the approved sales channel online. At the same time, sold less, generated less revenue for us. That is why Joke didn't make the cut. This is how to make use of this is how to make use of the if or function. Any question you have, please jot them down. Whenever we are having our class, our live session, I am going to answer every of your questions. But please have an open mind towards this. It's very, very important. If you have an open mind, it's going to be very, very easy for you. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So for the last part of our logical functions, we are going to be dealing with nested ifs. Nested ifs. And just like I said, that whenever you hear the word nesting, it means you are using more than one function together. And whenever you hear about nested ifs, it means you are using more than one function to join with the if function itself. This particular example here, we are going to be doing it in two ways, right? We are going to be doing it in 3 ways, I mean. We are going to be doing it in terms of the if and or. We are going to be using both if and if or. We are going to be using if and or together. And then we are going to be making use of, we are going to be attempting to make use of ifs. The ifs function that I said is only meant for everyone that is using an updated version of Excel, right? We are going to try and make use of it on this and see if it works. So very quickly, we have problem 8A, and which says if the distributor sells online, right, return their industry. Now, please, I cannot emphasize this. Understanding the question, you need to read this particular question very well. Read it calmly and slowly, and picture or visualize or imagine how you need to go about it, right? So it said, if the distributor sells online, return their industry. That's the first part of the question. That is, if the distributor sell their product online, just like the combination of our if and now, return their industry. Otherwise, if the distributor sells less than $500 of product, return their name. Return their name. Now, we are going to be bringing both and or together in a single if function now, right? And what and does is that, don't forget, and make sure that all your logical tests are absolute. Everything has to be correct. If not, and is not going to like work. So if and cannot find everything to be absolutely correct, then it will now give all the chance to now make its own logical test, right? How does that happen? Let's quickly go to it and see. We say equals to if, and then the first thing we are going to be bringing in is and. Now the first logical test is that they said we should check if any of these distributors sells their products online, right? If any of the distributors sells their products online. In order not to make the formula too long, I'm going to be using the cell names. And then the first cell name that this first cell I'm going to be using is, I want to use this sales channel to check if the sales channel, if the distributors sold their products online. So I'm going to be saying B9, comma, if B9 equals to, what? Online. So online. If B9 equals to online, that is my first That is my and now, because I am dealing with a single condition now for the distributor's sales channel. So I'm going to close this. That is for and. Now, for what do you want as value if true? If this distributor sells that, this is the first part of the question. What do you want as value if true? If this distributor sells online, the question said return their industry. So I'm going to be selecting where is the industry? I think, okay, I'm going to be selecting on the industry. So that is my value if true. Now, instead of me to now answer my value if false now, then I'm going to start another if function again. I'm going to say if. Now, this time around, I am bringing in or. So, or. Now, the first logical test for this one, as usual, for the second one now, right, is revenue. It's revenue, which is E9 as well. So, E9. If E9 is equals, is less than 500, I'll close my bracket again. Now, what is my value if true? My value if true is I should return their name. So I'm going to select on the distributor's name. My value if false, I'm just leave it empty. Or let me just put it at dash. Dash, and then I'll close my bracket one time. And then you see that the first bracket that I close, Excel is still bracket is still red, which means if I hit enter now, Excel is going to be giving me error, not because any of my functions is not correct, but because I am owing Excel a bracket. So I'm going to keep closing the bracket until I have a black bracket. And then you see now that I have a black bracket, and then I will hit enter. And then you will see. You will see now. This is what we are trying to achieve from here. Now, if the distributor sells online, right? If the distributor sells online, return their industry. John did not sell online. John did not sell online. So which means if and does not work on John. The condition that we use on if and does not work on John, right? It does not work on John. So we move on to if or and see if John will meet the requirement of if or. Now the if or says that if John now sell a product that is less than $500, right, in terms of revenue, then I should return John's name. Still, John sold more than 500. As a matter of fact, John sold 1,000. So John did not meet the two cuts. That is why I'm having, see the combination of both and or, right? Both and or, right? So, but let's look at the second person. But they sold online, which means if and, Excel will stop testing, Excel will stop making the test on if and, because if and is always dominant. If your test can fulfill the requirement for if and, Excel will stop testing. And then you will see that Excel stopped testing at industry. That is why we are having the industry of body when we were told to return their industry. Now, the revenue for, there is no need to test for if or, but even body did not meet the if or because it has exceeded the target revenue, right? So this is how to concatenate, to nest both if and together. Now let's go and make use of, let's go and check for problem 8b now. Let's check for problem 8b. Same method. So if a distributor meets the revenue and the quantity target, which is these two, return their name. That's the first part of the question. So we are going to be taking it one by one. So let's fulfill this one first. So we are going to say equals to if, then and, right? If and. Now the first revenue is 1,000. We are going to be using this 1,000 to test. Meets. Remember, you need to understand that the question did not say meet or exceed. Meet, that is, it has to be equals to. It has to be equals to, right? So we are going to say this is cell E28. I'm going to say cell E28 because I don't want my formula to be too long. If E28 is equals to my target revenue here, referenced absolutely, Then I am done with my if and, right? I'm going to close my brackets. No, I'm not done with my if and. That is my first logical test. Now, my second logical test now is that um, I should use quantity to also test quantity. This quantity here to test all this quantity, right? So the first quantity here is F28, that is 10. So I'm going to say F28 is equals to my target revenue, which is 5, reference absolutely. Please follow me as I go. That is why I am doing it one by one for us to understand. Close my brackets. I am done with my AND condition. Now my value if true. What do I want as my value if true? My value if true says I should return their name. So I'm going to be using their names. So I am done with my if and now. Right? I am done with my if and. Right? So I'm going to close my I'm going to press my comma, sorry. And then my value if, instead of me to specify my value if, I'm going to call on another if again, if this time around again, or now my first logical test again, the question continues, says if they only meet one of the requirements, one of these two, which means I have to carry out these two tests again, right? I have to carry out these two tests again. So what I'm going to do is I can just, let me copy or let me just type it again. Let me just type it again. So I'm going to say E28 equals to my target here, referenced absolutely, comma. Then my F28 again, F28 equals to my target quantity here, referenced absolutely, referenced absolutely. Then I'll close my bracket. Now my value, what is my value if true? What's my value if true? My value if true is if they only meet one of the requirements, return their industry. So I'm going to be selecting on the industry like this. Now my value if false is where my else is going to come from. Else, return the word neither. Then I'm going to say neither. Neither. Then I'll close my first bracket, close my second bracket. Right? And then let's see the magic. You can see. Voila. Now, let's go over it again. If a distributor meets the revenue and the quantity targets, let's check the first person. John, the revenue is 1,000. Yes, meets the revenue target. The quantity target also 5 revenue. Return their name. Return their name. I'm going to say equals to if and. Now my first logical function, that is, I'm going to be using my revenue to test for this target revenue. If a distributor meets the revenue, and if you can see, if you check here, you see that some distributors actually meet and even exceeded. So my first logical function is going to be cell that's E28 is greater than or equals to, because we have some revenues that are more, right? So greater than or equals to my target revenue here, referenced absolutely, comma. My second logical test is if my quantity now, my F28, if my F28 is greater than or equals to this particular quantity here, referenced absolutely, right? Then I am done. My value if true, I am asked, comma. My value if true, I am asked to return their name. So I'm going to select the distributor's name, right? Then My value if false, instead of me to enter my value if false, I'm going to call on my if again, if, or same test again, E28 greater than or equals to C23 reference absolute B, comma, again, F28 greater than or equals to C25 referenced absolutely, then close my bracket, comma. Now I'm asked, what is my value if true? If they only meet one of the requirements, return their industry. So my value if true is going to be their industry. Then, comma, my value if false, I should return neither. Neither. So I'm going to type neither, 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 and then I'll close my first bracket, close my second bracket, and I'll hit enter. And then you can see here that John had a revenue of 1,000, which meets target, and also had a quantity of 10. That is, if and works on John, right? If and works on John. Now let's see Bode too. Bode, yes, Bode made a 2,500 revenue and also met the exact target of the quantity. So Bode's name was returned. That is, if and also works on Bode. Now let's look at Jennifer. Jennifer's did not meet the revenue target, but Jennifer met the quantity target, which means if and does not work on Jennifer. Now let's look at the second part. We now, if and, after Excel moved from, Excel cannot find the fulfillment of if and on Jennifer. Excel now used the second alternate test, that is if or, that at least Jennifer can have to meet one of the two. Now, since Jennifer met the target for the quantity, so we have to return Jennifer's industry, which is leisure, right? And then you can see that Egungun also met the target, and then that's why Egungun is being returned. And then you can look at Joke. Joke did not meet the revenue target, did not meet the quantity target. That is, if and does not work on Joke, if or does not work on Joke, and then we have to return neither here. So that is how to nest both if and together. If and if or together. Now let's try and see if we can make use of let's go back to our if and see if we can make use of ifs function, the ifs function, to carry out to test if the ifs function, if it is going to like do the job for us. So I'm going to say equals to ifs. There is a function in Excel, a new updated Excel called ifs. So ifs. Now the first logical test one, right? The first logical test one is that we were asked to use the target unit, this unit price to test this, and then the revenue to test this too. So the logical test one is if this unit price here, sorry, let me just type the cell name. The cell name is E13. Cell name is E13. E13. If E13. Now, if E13 is equals to or is greater than or equals to, right? Is greater than or equals to C8. C8 referenced absolutely, comma, what is your value if true? Because if they both met target and revenue, but what is our value if true? Let's say met target. Met target. That is my first logical test. Ifs is just like a single function that can take care, that can do the job of if and. That is what ifs does, right? So the second logical test is our revenue here, which is F13. F13 is greater than or equals to my C10 here, referenced absolutely. My value if true. What is my value if true? My value if true is still met target. Now I am done. So instead of me to now call on the third logical test, because I only have two things to test for, right? So instead of me to call on my third logical test, I can just close the bracket and hit enter and see. can see that my E13, yes, made target, and F13, that's my revenue, did not meet target, was below target. Sorry, ifs works, if works with if or. Sorry, if works with if or, right? Let's go and try it in on if or and see. Just the same condition that we have here, right? So I am going to say equals to ifs, and then my first logical test is I am testing for these distributors. I sold their product through the online channel. So the first logical test is my B9. If B9 equals to if B9 equals to retail, the value if true is return the distributor name, which is C, which is this distributor's name. Right? Instead, let me just say C9, return C9. Now, my second logical test is still the same thing. If B9 is equals to direct, that is, I am dealing with the ones that are not online, right? That's what I'm using, direct. Value if true should be the same thing as C9. Then I'll close my bracket. I don't need to specify because there is no room for value if false in this, right? We just want to test for everyone that did not sell online. And then you can see John here. I see John. And then if I drag down, I see. Because I didn't specify, because ifs does not give us the opportunity to specify the value if false. That is why it is returning NA that is not available. NA is not available. And just like when we used if or here, that we are able to specify the value if false, and we put the dash there. And you can see how ifs works now. So ifs work as if or, right? Is a replacement. Ifs is a replacement for if or. It's very cool and straightforward for me, right? So that is that about how to use that. That is that about logical functions. So to do a quick recap of all of the logical functions we've done so far, we've done countifs, we've done countifs, we've done count if and count ifs, we've done some ifs and some if. We've also done if, and then we've also done the if and, we've nested and with if, we've nested or with if, and then we've nested both and or together in the same if function, right? So please, this is what we call logical function. Excel does not get much more advanced than this. It doesn't. If you get this, I can tell you that you can begin to brag about yourself that you know what you are doing, you know your onions in Excel. Get it and understand it. And the best way to do that is to practice. Practice. Please practice and practice and practice. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next lesson.